Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching this video. Today, my colleague Edgar Emanuel Garcia Ponce and myself, Iracema Mora Pablo, present this study entitled TOEFL ITP for English Proficiency in a Mexican University, Students' Perspectives and Experiences. In order to give you a little bit more of context, we would like to say that in order to promote the internationalization of education and professional mobility, higher education worldwide has seen the need to increase opportunities for students to develop English competence. To ensure that students upon graduation meet desired linguistic objectives, universities commonly use standardized tests. In the context of the present study, the TOEFL ITP test is used for entry and exit purposes in undergraduate and postgraduate programs. However, it is still unclear how students view this requirement and the academic support for obtaining the expected scores. Therefore, the present study explored the perspectives of 42 undergraduate students concerning the role of TOEFL ITP in higher education. For the literature review and to give a bigger perspective on English learning in Mexican institutions, we can say that the importance of this study for other universities that utilize standardized testing is that it shows that students' voices are a powerful source of information. But also in terms of Mexico, we can say that with the objective of meeting international standards established by the current globalization, higher education worldwide has directed efforts towards strengthening academic mobility, research, and insertion into the labor market. So, even though higher education has faced several challenges, which are a consequence of a complex interplay of factors, we can say that in Mexican higher education, there are limitations in terms of pedagogic flexibility, internationalization practices, and technological structure. There is also the prevalence of old-fashioned teaching methods and other factors related to the low socioeconomic status of students in large class sizes, which have limited universities from attaining the expected proficiency of students and graduates. For the TOEFL ITP, we can say that it is designed to evaluate the English language proficiency of non-native English speakers in academic settings, with progress monitoring specifically listed as one of the proposed uses of the TOEFL ITP scores. The test only includes 3 sections: listening, structure, and written expression and reading comprehension. This test is utilized by many different institutions with a variety of purposes in terms of test purpose and use of the results. However, we can say that scores obtained in the TOEFL ITP have been recently used in this higher education context as a requirement before students graduate. Considering all this, we consider that it is important to have a critical evaluation of the TOEFL ITP test from the user's perspectives. And this is important to know how they see the exam, how they feel when they are taking the exam. But so far, at least to our knowledge, there has been limited research to examine perceptions of TOEFL ITP and institutions' actual uses of its assessment.
Now, about the study, we consider a group of students' views on the role of TOEFL ITP in their language learning and academic choices. For this purpose, we thought that a qualitative research approach is appropriate for this objective. And this approach enabled us to understand the participants' words and actions in narrative or descriptive ways, closely representing the situation as experienced by the students. As my colleague said, the study was conducted at the University of Guanajuato in central Mexico. It is important to say that in this context, there is an emphasis on Spanish as the main language of instruction, but there are efforts to promote the development of English language skills of students. And as also mentioned by my colleague, there is this testing policy in this institution which encourage institutions and departments to use TOEFL ITP for exit or admissions purposes for the majority of the academic programs. For the data collection, we used a web-based questionnaire which was administered to the students. According to Wright, these type of instruments are useful because they allow researchers to gain access to individuals and groups who would be difficult to reach through other means and channels. And our intention was to reach out to a great number of students. So we posted calls on social media, and we also sent invitations to program coordinators in order to encourage the participation from students. We therefore considered the responses of 42 participants from humanities and sciences programs. The distribution was 18 humanities students and 24 sciences students. The data was then transferred to an Excel file, which was treated using a thematic analysis, which help us understand the views that the students had on the role of ITP in their academic and professional decisions. Now, results. As you can see here on the quotes, on these views, the responses from the students, they held positive views on the role of ITP, as suggested by student 17 and student 11. The role of TOEFL ITP was to know mostly their English proficiency and measured from international standards. So TOEFL ITP for them was or is an instrument for measuring their English proficiency. But in general, the students had positive views on the role of ITP in their academic choices. However, the participants perceived a number of limitations. Like, for example, student 3 and student 19 mentioned that they did not have the English proficiency in order to take the TOEFL ITP and get the expected scores. Also, they mention other limitations like lack of time to focus on self-learning or heavy academic workloads, which do not allow them to spend time self-learning the language. It was interesting to see that the students provided several recommendations in order to enhance the situation of the use of TOEFL ITP and also their English proficiency. Like, for example, they suggested that more training courses should be provided in order to train them to pass and obtain the expected results in TOEFL ITP. Also, they recommend that the increase of a greater number of English courses for developing their English proficiency. Other recommendations relate to classes related to English for specific purposes or teaching the content of their classes using English.
For our discussion and conclusions, we can say that the present study set out to examine a key group of students' perspectives on the English learning and the use of the TOEFL ITP. Through its institutional development plan and educational model, the university has set a modest number of strategies, we would say, to promote the teaching and learning of second languages without any clear emphasis on English. Even though TOEFL ITP is commonly used in this context to measure students' English proficiency, no exploration, to the best of our knowledge, has been conducted to explore how stakeholders, like students, perceive this standardized test for academic and professional purposes. This is significant because the university could be neglecting information, which could help make more effective decisions and design policies which increase students' likelihood of obtaining the desired TOEFL ITP scores. The 42 participants appear to support the institutional strategy to learn the second language, in this case English, and develop proficiency for the national and international labor market. Their views also appear to be similar regarding to the use of TOEFL ITP. Their responses suggested positive attitudes toward the standardized test as a requirement for graduation. However, In spite of the positive attitudes towards the English language and the TOEFL ITP test, the students' responses suggested perceived limitations in terms of their English proficiency, which is expected in the undergraduate programs. The participants suggested three factors: time constraint, lack of practice, and heavy academic workloads. This contradiction goes against their initial views on the language and TOEFL ITP, and this might suggest that institutional strategies should be formulated to promote students' learning autonomy. For the limitations, we can say that the findings of this study are subject to two main limitations. First, only students from the science and humanities divisions from one campus participated in this study. Second, from all the relevant stakeholders, only students were considered for this study. Therefore, a further study could examine the views of the four stakeholder groups, which are students, language teachers, policymakers, and employers, in order to continue understanding the role of the TOEFL ITP in English learning, and how this evidence, which would be bottom-up level, could be directed to informing strategies which are formulated in the top-down level in higher education. These are our references, and thank you very much for watching this video.